Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Business Owners Strategy Forum. This is week 16. I can't believe that it's been that long that we've been presenting. And obviously, we started this forum back 16 weeks ago when we were going into lockdown and going into sort of uncertain times. And so, for the past 16 or so weeks, we've tried to deliver a fair amount of content to everybody to help them navigate through the complexity, not only of COVID, but also just in business in general. So what we've tended to do is actually, we've dealt with all the COVID sort of related stuff around, government stimulus packages, but then we saw that this was a great forum for us to then continue to promote great knowledge and information to our business owners to help them once again navigate through the complexity of business and help drive thriving businesses. So that the whole forum purpose was to connect, share, support, strategize and implement. And we've delivered some great sort of content over the last 16 weeks. And we've got, once again, a fantastic speaker today. Really pleased that I'll just stop sharing for a second, but and introduce Eamon Wolf, who's Eamon. I had the pleasure of listening to a presentation of his at a future board seminar that I went to. And, Eamon's a high-performing mindset coach who specialises in helping people to perform at their best in high-pressure environments. And it works with corporates, fast-growing private business owners, which a lot of them on this call at the moment, and also, elite athletes in the NRL, AFL, English football, in the military, emergency services. So, comes with a lot of experience. And I saw Eamon also demonstrate some technology, which I thought was fantastic in terms of understanding how our brain functions and works, especially under pressure. And why it was really, really good for me to sort of connect with Eamon is because I have a very similar philosophy to Eamon around the fact that I believe that small business owners should be treated like high-performing athletes because, it's a relentless pursuit to run a business. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we're under constant pressure all the time. And we need to be supported by, people around us and as many people as we possibly can. So I'm always, on a personal level, looking towards finding people that can help me continue to operate, running a business at the level that we need to, and also helping, our clients and our business owners do the same thing as well to ensure that they are able to continually drive forward the business and operate in such a fashion because, we know that the amount of pressure that you can be under when you're running businesses and growing and developing them. So, when I saw Eamon's stuff and the stuff in the background, the experience he had, I thought it was fantastic. And I asked him to present to our, to the business owners on this call today, because I think you'll get a huge amount of benefit from it. So I'm going to hand it over to Eamon and say thank you so much for spending the time with us today and taking us through some of the experience and background that you've got, things that work, some of the great results you've had, some of the tech you've got. And I think that, I'm looking forward to having a chat today. So thanks very much, Eamon.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Lovely to be here. So,
while Eamon's sort of putting his screen up and running, as per normal, we have got a Q&A box down the bottom. So if people are interested in asking some questions, please type it in there. And, along the way, we'll be just having a chat anyway. So feel free to ask questions and we can go from there. But Eamon, I'll hand it over to you to go through the preso and we can have a bit of a chat about, the things that are going to help our business owners.
Lovely. Thanks, Matt. Great. So let's get stuck into it. And thank you for the backgrounding as well. But I'll just sort of picture paints 1,000 words. So it is very broad and spread. We legitimately sit across a range of different industries. And there's a common thread that sits under all this, where anyone is under sort of extreme pressure and high consequence environments, they tend to hang out with us. If you're not under pressure, if you're not really going for it, if you're comfortable, you don't tend to hang out with us. So So we do. We help people excel in high pressure environments. And, they can be running a business, they can be kicking a football, it can be shooting a gun. It can even be people caring for people dying of motor neuron disease, or students preparing for final exams. Like, we've been into all sorts of worlds. And we decided to write a book about it because we know that under pressure, it's the mind that goes missing, not the body. And we've spent years figuring out where it goes. And you've all probably sat there at home and you're pulling your hair out going, why is your favourite player missing that kick or dropping that ball? Well, there's a reason.
I was watching Carlton last night, so I'd like to know the answer to that too. So if you could tell me that, that'd be a great mystery for me.
Yeah, well, we've decoded it, so you'll be able to read all about it shortly.
Excellent.
But essentially, I just want to frame this up for you all. The mind is under more load than any time in human history. Just kind of let that one drop in for a sec. We've been around for a long time. Humans, as we know, have been around for a good 50, 60,000 years, but our biology goes back a long way, millions of years. And our cognitive brain hasn't had to do and compute what it's having to do right now. It's unprecedented in evolution. The amount of content that's going in, the amount of information that's going out, the speed of everything. We are in the information age. It is the age of the mind, literally. And more as machines start to take our jobs, our body's not going to be our differentiator. It's going to be this. You think about the retirement age, it was set at when your body gave out traditionally, 65. Now, in the future, it's going to be set when your mind gives out. So here's a little bit of data around it. You can kind of just have a look through that. But in the last, probably since technology arrived in 1986, I don't know if anyone ever remembers the old computers or the 486s they might have had when computers first came online. Yeah. But there's an intense amount of content that's going in and out of your brain. And we thought this one was interesting. The word uncertainty was used every 2 weeks in the media pre-COVID. It's used about 30 to 50 times per day. So, if you hear about fear or if you hear about uncertainty, your brain's going to start to pick up on that content. And we know it's kind of a peak stress environment, especially for business owners. A lot of businesses aren't going to be around in 6 months. Some will be. So, it's a bit of a grand final moment for leaders at the moment. And the question that I have is, we take this, as you said, Matt, this high performance angle, a military term, are you fit for duty? Are you ready to go? And I guess the question I would have for you is, well, maybe we can just jump into the comments or the questions if you want, but are you, and how do you know that you're fit? When you wake up in the morning, now if you're a professional athlete of ours, we're testing and tracking and measuring you, and we know if you're ready to go. We know if we've overtrained you. We know if your immune system's about to give out. Same in the military. But in business, we are running pretty hot, and often most leaders have got no idea what level of performance they're actually internally running at.
That's, I think, really pertinent, and I felt that this week, given the end of the financial year, and I was saying to somebody the following day, I felt like I had a hangover, and I didn't get the benefit of enjoying, to get the hangover in the first place, but I was completely fatigued and shattered, and probably wasn't fit for duty. So it's a fair point to make. I think that we roll up some days and we're probably not fit.
Yeah, and we can take the guesswork out of that and tell you just where you are now with the rise of technology, which is great. And sort of, if we're talking about burnout to Blackbelt here today, so we're not more talking about the leaders out there who just want to go to the next level. We're talking about the ones who are under a lot of pressure and potentially redlining, and they usually fall into two categories, which is I'm screwed and I know it, help, or I'm okay, and then we do all your measurements and we put the tech on you and we test your stress hormone and you go, oh my God, I'm actually screwed and I didn't even know it. And I'm running for a cliff edge that I don't even know is there. So just be aware, you may fall into one of these categories. And the military looked at this and they actually built a model, because they'd always looked at fit for duty from a physical perspective, but they hadn't looked at it from the role of fatigue in the mind. And they built this model based on a piece of tech that we actually used to use. And it gives you a readiness score every day of how ready you are to go. And then they went an extra step. They spent $37 million building this model. They then correlated it to equivalent blood alcohol percentage in the brain. So Matt, the other day when you're feeling all that fatigue, you might have been running 0.08 blood alcohol.
I reckon it probably was. I felt, you do, and no doubt everybody feels it at certain points of the month or points of the week or day. And I think when I saw you present this the last time, I think it's a great way of sort of demonstrating, how you do feel.
We've got a CEO hopped off a flight in London with his tech on, and his readiness was at 50. So that's probably about 0.2 blood alcohol, and he's walking into a big high consequence meeting.
Wow.
Had no idea. So it can be quite shocking when you actually make the invisible visible. The other thing is, we profile leaders' minds across 30 key areas of mental skill as well. So there's skill in here. There's levers that you can pull. And what we know from owners, private owners of sort of founder-run businesses, is the big 5 trends across the 30 data points. The top one, imposter syndrome running. Very common. I don't know how I got here. I must have lucked it. They're going to find me out soon. And we know if you don't have an image of yourself that matches where you want to go and what you want to achieve in life, you'll never get there. So there's a bit of a handbrake there. Self-talk. People are their worst enemies lives between their own 2 ears. So, they're kneecapping themselves with the way they speak to themselves. If you're sitting there in front of goal going, don't miss, don't fail, I'm going to stuff it up, look what I did last time, what's going to happen?
Somebody was saying, we were talking about this the other day and talking about the fact that the way you talk to yourself, you'd never talk to anyone else like that, but you tend to be able to talk to yourself that particular way, which is quite amazing when you start to break it down and think of it from that level.
Absolutely. And it's a skill. Like all of these are skills that we can be trained in. The problem is this skill training hasn't been in our schools, hasn't been in our universities, it's not in our MBAs, but soon it will be. Fear of failure. Short kick. If you're fearing failure, there's about 36 percentage points of possibility and potential that's unlocked behind fear of failure in this country. So what's the GDP consequence of that? Ability to focus. Our leaders have got really busy heads. They're mental quiet. There's just a million thoughts running around up there. They're probably waking up at 2 a.m. with their head spinning. Busy the mind, lower the performance. Quieten that thing down. And ability to recover. We know that people are not sleeping effectively. They're not recovering effectively. So that fatigue equation just starts to compound. If you can't solve fatigue, you can't solve anything. So I just want to bring in this concept now of the difference between resilience and stoicism. We did a project, and this is a group of carers of people dying of motor neuron disease. So if anyone's had any contact with M&D, it's a very challenging way to live the world and leave the world. And you're waking up to be able to talk ever again, or might not be able to use their left arm. So it's a very challenging exit. And what they found with the carers is the rate of homelessness or hospitalisation was about 1 in 2 after their partner died. So the program was built in to bring resilience to this group so they could have a life beyond this tragic time. And, a couple of sessions in, they're all sitting there going, I'm resilient, I'm resilient, I'm resilient. We're like, we wouldn't be here if you were resilient. What's going on? And we came to understand that they were actually just being stoic.
Yeah.
I can put up with anything. I can persevere, think post-war generation, you just got to chin up and get on with it and persevere. And what we came to understand that with being stoic is there's chaos on the outside, but there's also chaos on the inside. And with resilience, there's chaos on the outside, but there's actually peace on the inside and calm.
It's a really good point that you make, because I think, as leaders in business and leaders in general, you've got to feel like you are sort of stoic, that you've got to look like it's all under control and you're calm and leading the field, and you can't. And in these people's tragic situation that, they can't be letting anyone else down, for example. They've got to remain that particular way. And it's a similar sort of concept from a business owner's point of view, that they feel this sense of obligation, responsibility, and then stoicism sort of comes from that. And it makes a huge amount of sense for me. And I love the way you describe the fact that there's chaos on the outside and on the inside, but you're not allowing yourself to give into that chaos, I suppose, for want of a better word.
Yeah, and it will be affecting your performance. It will be affecting your resilience. It will be affecting your home life. It will be affecting your ability to lead, make decisions. All of those things are going to be impacted. So, a question I would have is, how much of the week do you spend adding content to your mind versus how many hours a week do you spend training your mind? Because it's an asset. It's no different to training a muscle. And for most people, they spend all of their week putting content in there, but they're still running Windows 95. And that's why we're seeing that. That's what Windows 95 looks like in 2020.
Yeah.
So most people aren't training the mind. They aren't. And you're employed for your mind, not your body. Well, I hope you're not employed for your body.
I can rest assure you, it is my brain that people pay for.
Yeah. It's your number one asset. It's the thing that defines you. It's the thing that drives everything that you do. You never leave the gym of the mind. Yet historically, we haven't been training it. We just kind of show up with what we've got. And most leaders, there's a great HBR article, are focusing too much on changing policies and strategies and technologies, which is important, and not enough on changing minds. So if any of you are engaged in any kind of organizational transformation work, which I used to do in my professional career, it's hard. And it's not about whether you've got the money or the strategy or the technology. It's hearts and minds. If you can't shift people's mindset, change is a really painful equation. And often this doesn't get any focus. And if we were to put you into an fMRI machine and scan your brain, what we'd find is that all of our brains are shaped slightly differently. And this is the sum result of how you've thought and how you've acted through your entire life to this point. And we know that certain areas of the brain are thicker or thinner depending on what you've actually chosen to think, feel, and act. So if you're a chronic worrier, if you've got chronic anxiety or depression, your hippocampus is going to be thinner. If you do other techniques like meditate and train your brain as an example, your hippocampus is going to be thicker. So your ability to regulate your emotions, make more effective decisions is going to be very, very different. And we know under pressure,
Which is a really interesting concept that you talk about there, in terms of there is a physical attribute or outcome to the way you feel and the way you think, sort of type thing. So that's actually, and when you start to put some data and science behind it, because, I think that's where that stoic sort of comes from. You think, well, I can't feel this particular way because I'm unable to, and, I've just got to suck it up and deal with it. But sometimes there's a physiological thing that's associated with it too, that's actually causing it, which is important to understand.
It is. You've wired your neural pathways in a particular direction. So everyone out there, you're a genius at something. You might be a genius at worrying. You could be a genius at being happy. You could be a genius at being negative. You could be a genius at being anxious or joyful. You've all got good at something. And this is why behavior change is challenging, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And this is why people who go on a weight loss program on average regain 107% of their weight. And we fall back to the default wiring and structures that you can see on your screen there.
So the trick is to actually change the wiring, the patterns and the structure of the brain, which will therefore help you to maintain that level of, I suppose, a better life, for want of a better word.
Yeah. And you got 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
That makes me exhausted just thinking about that.
That's right.
And 90% of them are the same as yesterday and the day before. So if you don't bring any conscious attention to training your mind, you're just going to show up and keep running the same program that you've been running for the last 10 years. because your brain's designed to run most of what you do on autopilot. Because if you had to think about breathing, you could forget, and that would be dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do that, you're suddenly making the same decisions. You're seeing the world the same way. You're seeing the business environment the same way. There's nothing new happening. You just show up and repeat your past every day.
Makes sense. Scary statistical data always is when you're saying that 90% of what you thought of today is the same as what you thought of yesterday or last week. It's an amazing stat.
And then if I add pressure to you, if I turn up the heat and just put the screws on you a bit, what we know, and we know this from the military, is you don't rise to the occasion, you drop to your level of preparation. So this is a good myth to blow out of the water. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna step up. It's like, no, you're gonna fall back to where you've trained to. And we always say in sport, we play how we train. If we train poorly, the weekend's usually pretty average. So you need to train these skills in so that they are defaults, so that when the pressure's on, they just automatically action. Because if you've got to go searching for what you've got to do when the heat's on, you're not going to find it. You're just going to default back to whatever your programming was. And that might be, I'm just going to get reactive. I'm just going to get angry. I'm going to get resistant. I'm going to start to worry. So we need to make sure that your baseline and your foundation is completely different and is ready for the game that you're about to play.
Makes sense. And we were taught that from a young age about, the way you train is the way that you play from a sport perspective. But when you then start to draw the parallels in relation to working life, I suppose the difference is with working life is that, it's not, every day is not necessarily, every day is the game as opposed to practicing for the game. That's probably the big difference. So we have to rise to the occasion nearly every day.
And you've got to train every day.
Yep.
Yeah. And here's one other data point I'm going to throw in, which is the responsibility score. And I know all of you are going to go, yeah, I'm responsible. I run a business. Of course I'm responsible. Yeah. But we come at it from a slightly different angle. So 68%. And now I'm going to explain what we mean by responsibility, but I can guarantee you that no one in your organization is going to take any more responsibility than you're going to take. So you can see there that there's 32 percentage points of what we would call resistance that's at play there. And we really learnt this if we go back to 2014, in the year that the Rabbitohs brought this work in to help break their hoodoo. And I don't know if you sort of remember back, but the previous 2 years they were up in both games, and then they had, I think, 18 points unanswered scored against them, and then 20 points unanswered scored against them. They just got blown out in the prelims. And, Michael Maguire knew it wasn't a body issue, because if anyone knows Maguire, he's a pretty hard taskmaster. He'll run you up and down some hills with some logs. He knew it was mental. So it's about 20 sessions that were run that season. And this was one of the big things that really shifted them. So there was a question that was asked, which is, of a typical 80-minute game, how much of it goes the way that you train for? And they were like, 60%. And we're like, all right, what's the other 40? And they're like, oh, that's the stuff we hate. And we're like, oh, we're onto something here. So what's that? And they're like, oh, it's the bad refs call. It's the booing from the crowd. It's the niggling injury. It's the sledging. It's the fact that it's 40 degrees and it's meant to be a winter sport. Yeah. I'm like, all right. So walked them out and walked them up to the top and lined them all up. So this is Redfern Training Oval. And it said, from up here, when you look back at the field, is the bad refs call part of the game? And they're like, yep. Booing from the crowd part of the game? Yep. Injury part of the game? Yep. Sledging? Yep. 40 degrees? Yep. So like when you're up in the grandstand, you can see that it's part of the game, but when you're down there on the field, you're resisting the hell out of it and saying it shouldn't be like this, and you're arguing with the ref. And so this was a huge shift for them to start to accept the whole game. Now, if you don't like the fact that it's 80 meters and there's 2 goalposts and it's 4 points for a try, then you need to go and play a different game. Because if you're going to play this game, you better get good at it. Bad refs calls are part of the game. Never in the history of arguing with a refs call has it ever changed a refs call. So stop it. So the question for you would be, What do you resist that's part of your game? Where do you go, shouldn't be like this, and you cross your arms? And
that's a great question, because it's, you know, when you translating that into our daily lives, we resist a lot. We resist all the time because, you know, it shouldn't be like this, or it's not fair, or I don't want to deal with this, or, you know, that happens on a daily basis for most of us that run businesses.
Yep. And that starts to build the internal chaos that we're talking about. Because resistance is like having one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and you're spinning your wheels and you're chewing a shitload of energy and you're going absolutely nowhere. So this is what the Rabbitohs got good at, was actually accepting everything was part of the game. And not only that, they started training for it. Start training for the bad refs call. Start training for all the things that are going to go wrong. So chaos is going to be your competitive advantage, because I can guarantee you a lot of your other competitors out there are resisting the hell out of the game. So if you get good at this, you're going to have a competitive advantage. And it looked a bit like that. 9 months later, they broke a 43-year drought. There were a lot of other tools there, but that was a really, really big one. So how would you show up if you treated business like an elite athlete? If this was game time each day. Now, if you come and grab a coffee with me or hang out with me sometime, you'll probably go, wow, this dude's pretty extreme, and you'll see all of the different things that I have in this whole lab that I've got at home around performance and longevity and all the things that I take and eat. And but I hold myself to the same standard I expect of my athletes, which is to be elite. And same with my business owners. Absolutely. This is a high performance ecosystem because you need to be at your absolute best. So it's now measurable. The mind used to be in this, it's a bit woo-woo, it's a bit fluffy, we don't know how to train it. And neuroscience has just blown it out of the water. We can make the invisible visible now. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put on a neurofeedback headset. I'm going to show you some of my brainwaves live so you can see what it looks like inside this head of mine. Now, I've offered to put one of these on Matt.
That would probably redline.
So let's dive over. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to bring up two primary brainwaves. That blue one, alpha, is my focused brainwave, single point of focus, optimal state of performance, got nice neurotransmitters and hormones releasing into my bloodstream. Beta, that's the stress brainwave, so it's all about dominance. When that one's dominant, I'm releasing my stress hormone cortisol, I've got adrenaline pumping into my bloodstream, I'm going into a stress state, multitasking, that is a low state of performance. And what we find with most leaders is they've mistaken stressed for focused. So what I'm going to do is have a bit of a play with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some stress and get that green line to move. Okay, and let's get that blue one to move. I'm going to intentionally create focus and calm. And down again. And down again. And a bit more stress. So you can see in real time, I'm actually able to flex my brain and generate my state at will. Now, if you were here, I'd put these headsets on a few of you, and what we find is 99% of people cannot change their brain frequencies at will. So that means your brain is going to be dictated by your environment. If it's stressed out there, it's going to be stressed in here. The difference for me is no matter what the chaos is out there, I can always create calm in here because I've trained my mind and I've trained my brain.
It's incredible control. Like that I saw you do this recently, and I was just blown away about the control, because what I find, and what I find most people sort of, in these sorts of positions that we're in, sort of, they might be disciplined in their approach, their physical discipline, but the mental discipline is probably the thing that they struggle with, which is what you're really talking about. And to be able to actually discipline your mind to react and respond or not to situations or to thoughts is quite incredible. And to see how you can control that is, it just blows me away.
Mm. And we would find in an athlete environment that an amateur, an untrained mind in an athlete, they cannot do that, but a trained professional athlete can generate alpha spikes, so that focus spike before critical tasks like kicking for goal, shooting. So when you're sitting there and you're watching Carlton or whoever your team is, and they're right in front of goal and it should be an easy kick and it sprays, it's because they're running a beta brainwave and they're not actually able to generate their state at will. They go into a stress state and they hit the post or they spray it.
Yeah.
So they just don't have mind control in that moment because they've kicked it a million times. They know how to kick it.
Mm.
So it's a trainable skill. I'm just going to keep saying that. It's a trainable skill. It's a trainable skill. Much like your body, you can actually strengthen this and make this better. So what I'm going to just sort of wrap with is a really quick look at a case study. So privately owned business, around 30 million in turnover. They did some work with us recently over 5 months. And this was a real burnout to black belt story. So this is what it looks like. Training the mind is a combination between mindset and awareness, and giving you different perspectives and lenses through which to see the world. And there's 10 different operating systems in there from iOS 1 to iOS 10. So if we were to profile your mind, you're all running a different piece of software. And what we know is our phones are upgrading all the time. If you're not running the latest operating system, it's going to be slow, it's going to lag, it's going to struggle. The other one is skill sets. So it's not enough to just have awareness. You've got to have a Batman belt of tools that you can reach for under pressure. You've got to know what levers to pull. So, there's about 40 different tools that we work with that we can slot into your belt, whether you're running out on the MCG or you're walking into a big meeting or you're about to do a keynote speech, whatever it is. And then we need data because, from a sporting angle, what you get in sport is really quick feedback loops. You've got all this data running on you. You're finding out sort of day by day, how am I going? What do I need to adjust? So we bring this sort of high performance tech and measurement perspective into working with our leaders. So you're going to get data every day that's going to be feeding back all of these metrics in your physiology and how you're actually going. You combine those three, you start to get radical behavior change and you start to get breakthrough. You get breakthrough in your own behavior, in your own thinking, and you get breakthrough in your business. So this is a cortisol curve. So this is, you get 5 little saliva samples and you'll stick a little tube in your mouth and you take a sample throughout the day. And this was the CEO, and it's measuring your stress hormone. So you're meant to have and this cortisol generates energy. So you're meant to have a nice green curve. So it wakes you up in the morning and then you get consistent energy through the day. Mm-hmm. Under stress, you'll start to move up into the orange or up into a high red line curve. Now, if you stay up in the red for too long, what happens is often your adrenal glands will give out and this curve collapses and you get chronic fatigue and burnout and you can't get out of bed for 3 months.
Right.
So we know plenty of leaders who've been through chronic fatigue. You might know people in your life who've been through chronic fatigue. So they've just been writing checks their body can't cash and eventually they've got to pay.
So it's all the cortisol sort of levels that are driving it, as we've always heard before. Yeah. That it seems to be the thing that you've got to control the most.
Yep. And if you're lining up for goal and you don't have your cortisol curve regulated, so as soon as your stress hormone's out of whack, your brain is going to be out of whack and the whole system's going to be out. So what happens is you're a leader. As you said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a state of chronic sustained stress over a long period of time. And this curve just starts to bump up and bump up and bump up. Mm-hmm. And your ability to think clearly, regulate your emotions, make effective decisions, effectively build relationships, innovate, with a curve like that is seriously impaired. It's also really high at night. So this CEO's leaders, their sleep is terrible because they haven't actually down-regulated at night either.
Yeah.
And this is what the cortisol profile looked across the entire 20 leaders. So they're all cooking, most of them. They are redlining. And a lot of these people walked in and got their cortisol debriefed and their mindset profile. And we also put these biometric sleep rings on you, which track all of your physiological markers and sleep and fatigue. And their jaws dropped because they were I'm okay.
Yeah.
And didn't actually know I was completely screwed.
Yeah.
So it was quite alarming. And if I bring you back to that fatigue model, the average fatigue level based on the rings was at 70% readiness. So they were pretty consistently showing up to work at 0.08 blood alcohol. Like, that's alarming.
It is alarming.
Yeah. Post 5 months, that's what his cortisol curve looked like. Almost back to green. So across this group, we saw up to about an average of 50% drop in hard physiological hormone levels. So this part is hard science as opposed to a questionnaire you fill out. This is literally your biology. So this leader is feeling very differently now. If they were on this call, they'd tell you a very different experience of who they were now and who they were last year.
It's quite amazing to see the shift, and that they must, it'd be great to, to understand exactly how they feel, because obviously they'd be feeling significantly different.
Significantly, yeah. And I'd also note that this cortisol test was taken right in the middle of COVID, the second one. So for him to be able to regulate himself in that environment and take a hard physiological measure and be doing pretty well tells me that he's now being resilient and not stoic.
Awesome.
And here's the team shift.
A lot more green, a lot more orange.
A lot more, a couple little spots, but that's in 5 months, that's an entire executive team taken off the cliff of high-risk burnout and potential chronic fatigue. So, if they were all here, the story they'd tell around how they're collaborating and working and thinking together, the level of conflict that's no longer there, or they're not rubbing each other because everyone's super stressed anymore. So productivity is going through the roof in a team like that now. And the average readiness score, we've got it up to just above 80 now. So you're going to have your good days and your bad days, but a 10 percentage point increase, and that will just continue to grow as they get better and keep mastering the tools, because it takes time to get good at this stuff.
It's amazing statistical data, and obviously you're going to share with us what they actually did to be able to achieve that. Yeah,
so it's your number one competitive advantage, and what they did was they went through a behavior change program. They went into an operating system and skill set training program to train their minds. So they've all got a Batman belt of skills now. They've all got technology running on them. They're now doing quarterly cortisol tests in the team to keep the accountability running. Some people have gone from getting 5 minutes of deep sleep at night where your brain repairs to getting 2.5 hours. So if your brain's not repairing, that means you're basically accelerating degenerative cognitive conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. And there's a lot of leaders who aren't sleeping well. So they've got that. And it's a totally different team. I guess the thing that I want to express here is that this doesn't need to take forever. When we get brought in a sporting environment, I can't wait 2 years. I need results on Saturday.
That's right.
So these are designed to, this work is designed to work fast as well. Yet there is, it is habit stacking. You need to build behavior because you've spent 3 decades or 4 decades behaving a certain way. It's going to take a little bit of time to turn that ship. So if I can leave you with a sentiment, it's really, the best time was 10 years ago, but the second best time is now. And the role of the mind in your business and the role of the mind in society and where technology is going, I do think we're going to be kind of bionically kitted and chipped up in the future. I think that it's going to become a really, really big part of our lives. So you can kind of get on the front wave of this and really adopt this. And it's not only that, it's going to give you sustainability. It's not enough to get to an elite level. Can you stay there? Because it's no good if you burn out in 5 years.
I suppose the big question that you've got is that, without giving too much of the trade secrets away and stuff like that, but what's sort of the process that these people go through to be able to train their brain? Because obviously, that we do things like meditation to try and calm our brain and our cortisol levels, and that we have sort of mindfulness practices and stuff like that. There's a lot of what you're sort of advocating for around the discipline of that, or is it more sort of a physiological thing that you're talking about?
Yeah, so what this isn't is mindfulness. This is really mental skill training and mindset training. So I would say that meditation's a tool.
Yep.
One of many. It's a king tool for reshaping your brain. But there's lots of other tools. Now, some of those tools are going to be things to recorrect your self-talk. Some of those tools are going to be, how do you actually get past fear of failure? Some of those tools are going to be around sleep. So I've just run deep dives for a client around sleep, and they've got probably 10 tools now that they're using and building into their practices around sleep optimization. I've just run one on emotions and how to regulate your emotions. So different tools that they can reach for. So some of these are literally going to be these are the 4 steps that you need to action. And if you go bang, 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 that's going to shift this.
Right.
Some of them are going to be awareness perspectives, like it's part of the game, and shifting your mind frame. So it's a combination of those two, and then it's the combination of tracking. Now, this is why we put so much measurement in, because people come to us and go, yeah, I sleep well. And I'm like, well, you're asleep. How do you know? Yeah, my stress is fine. And I'm like, all right, well, we know the human body's really good at renorming, so let's just take the guesswork out of it. So if you're not measuring it, and I remember the old, I can't remember who it was. Who was it? Buckmaster? We don't manage what we don't measure.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So if you're not measuring this, you're playing guesswork and you've got no awareness or understanding whether you're fit for duty or not. So we really encourage you to take the guesswork out.
And it's so important to have data, and we understand the importance of data, especially in business and that sort of stuff, because we measure data and we measure KPIs and profitability and percentages all day, every day, and it's so great to know that there is opportunities for us to be able to measure things that we historically probably couldn't measure, and understand how we're improving, or really knowing where our starting point is. Because a lot of time I talk about, when we're actually developing strategies, you're sort of saying, well, okay, if I want to drive from Melbourne to Brisbane, then I'm going to draw a map from Melbourne to Brisbane. But the reality is you don't even know if you're in Melbourne or not, because you don't have the data, which is what you're talking about. You could be in Adelaide for all you know. And so from that point of view, to be able to at least baseline and understand it and have more awareness, as you say, will help significantly then, work out the journey in the first place, and then the steps and the tools to be able to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to know where you start. It'd be like me going, hey, Matt, we need to do budgeting. And I'm like, just guess. We don't need to see the numbers. Just make it up. You'd never bring that lack of ethic and discipline to your business and your finances. So why you're not bringing that to yourself and your own personal performance?
That's right.
Yeah.
Makes a huge amount of sense.
Yeah.
We just got a question from Ian that asked that, can the mind be neurologically manipulated by neurologists? Which is I'm pleased that I was able to actually get that out of my mouth. So that's a good question.
So I won't comment on the field of therapy or pathology in that area, because we're really clear that we're performance, not pathology, and we have a handover point where we would work with those who are neurologists or therapists or the like. So I'm just going to leave that one out of my ballpark. There is a lot of manipulation that is going on with different technologies and stimulation and lots of things like that. I think it's going to be an emerging area. But yeah, I'm going to play.
Yeah, yours is more about training it from tools, as you say, external tools that we would actually use and implement that are able to retrain and rewire and refocus from a thought perspective, I suppose, is what you're really talking about.
Michael.
Yeah, and also that's one of my mates that likes to ask a question every week, and he's an equally frustrated Carlton supporter, so he wants you to drop in at Princes Park when you are on the way home if you possibly can.
I know David Teague, actually.
I do.
I've done a little bit of work with him once upon a time. So yeah, poor old Carlton. It's been your long-suffering supporters, is all I'll say. It was meant to be the 5-year plan, and it's still the 5-year plan.
It's been a long 5 years.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm sure that there's plenty of supporters for teams around the world that suffer the same sort of level of pain. But I mean, the reality is that when you bring it back into business, there's plenty of businesses that are underperforming because of the stress, and also the fact that we're not capable of or understand the tools that we can have at our fingertips to be able to operate at our best. And I'm a firm believer, as I said before, about high performance, and hence the fact I got you on, which has been incredibly valuable again today. And having people around you that can support you in that particular journey, and have great advisors in whether that's because you think about a high performing athlete and they have a nutritionist and a mindset coach and a performance coach, and they have doctors and medical staff, and they have all these people that are there to support them to keep them operating at their full potential. And what we don't have in business is probably that support network, or if we to get it, we actually have to go and find it. So, this is part of obviously demonstrating the fact that there is tools and knowledge and things that we have at our fingertips and disposal because of people like yourself, and that can then help us and deliver this sort of stuff to us. So, we'd like to thank you for the fact that, you are doing this type of work to support us in business to keep, running, thriving businesses, especially, as you said, at the moment with COVID, that adds another layer of stress on us in terms of, navigating through the complexity of that. So that's been awesome. Is there anything that any final sort of words that you wanted to speak about today? Just parting words for business owners that might be sort of thinking about, what do they do next, or next steps in terms of, or simple techniques or things that they can do to upgrade their mind, as you say.
Yeah, I would want, don't be fooled by how powerful accepting the game is. So, I'd really encourage you to sit down tonight and just write a list of all the things that you resist. And if you don't know what they are, ask the people around you and all the things you moan about, because they'll know exactly what the things you resist, that you resist. And it's time to start stepping into acceptance, because until you step into acceptance, you're out of the game. So, and if you're going to get hit with something, you're going to, I just encourage you in your mind to use that phrase: got a really shitty email, it's part of the game. Got to have this tough conversation, part of the game. Got to do this thing I don't like, part of the game. Now, I would even challenge you to go to a step further and go, how do I get good at this? Not just even accept it, but how do I actually train and get really good at having to have that tough conversation? I'd really encourage you to get some tech on. So, go check out the Aura ring, O-U-R-A. It's our #1 sleep tracking ring. The NBA has just partnered with Aura, so the players and coaches are going to be using it when they go into camp shortly to finish off this season. It's the highest quality sleep tracker out there. Start to take some of the guesswork out of it. And I'd really encourage you to put a pit crew around you, whether that's, really good nutritionists, doctors, coaches, whatever it is. Start thinking of yourself like a F1 driver. And then start to think about what are the pieces I need to be around me, rather than my job's just to be there for everyone else. You play that game, you're going to lose.
That's really, really sound advice and great advice. And once again, very much appreciate your time today. And, it's been, an amazing sort of journey for me to listen to what you've done and the tech that you've got there, because I love the fact that we've got data and technology that can actually take, as you say, the guesswork out of some of this stuff to understand where our starting points are, and then to determine how we actually get on the pathway for, fundamentally and having a better life. So I think it's great. So thanks very much for your time again, Eamon, and we appreciate it.
Lovely. Thanks for having me.
And just for everybody, we are having a break next week. And so we're going to now run these sessions on more of a fortnightly basis rather than a weekly basis. And so we'll continually record them as we normally do, and they're all loaded up on our site. So if you haven't seen our previous sessions, then please do so and follow the site, the links that you get after these particular sessions. And also, really appreciate everybody who listens to this and gives us feedback. We're delighted by the fact that we get a huge amount of encouragement for the fact that people are really enjoying the fact we're bringing all this information to them to help them actually fundamentally have better businesses and also a better life. So thanks very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.